This week we are back in our overalls that we wore throughout the entire van build process. You might know what that means. We're gonna be working on the van today.
We've definitely been a little bit spoiled this past week since we've been mooch docking with my parents at their RV park ever since my sister's wedding. But finally, it is time to start working. So when we left Salt Lake City to go to my sister's wedding, the van build was 99% done. The one big thing that we have left to do is the electrical. Most of it's hooked up, but what we don't have is the solar panels. So today we have everything we need to finish that project, and we're gonna try our best to actually get some power in this van.
We've been able to do surprisingly well even without solar for the last, I think it's been over a week. We've just been powering our batteries only from our DC-DC charger. Now, to be fair, we have been mooch docking with Jimmy's parents. We're able to go into their RV to cook meals, so we're not having to use our electric cooktop or our water heater, which are our two largest power draws. But we've been able to run all of our lights, all of our fans, and our refrigerator around the clock with no problems. So I'm pleasantly surprised, but solar is gonna go a long way in making us totally off-grid.
So we've got 525 watts of solar panels from Renogy. These were picked out specifically to match our roof rack. If we measured correctly, we should be able to fit 3 of them horizontally in between our 2 rooftop fans.
Each of these panels has 175 watts of solar. In our last build, which was our short bus, we had 100-watt panels. So these are substantially larger, almost twice the size. And if you're curious about like the dimensions of it, it's about 80% of a Natalie's height. I was feeling so good about installing these solar panels until I remembered that this means we have to cut holes in our roof. So I'm a little bit more nervous about it now.
Since our entire roof rack is black, we made sure we went out of our way to do this. Black solar panel mounts. So it'll look real seamless on our nice black roof rack. We'll do it like this, because I'd like to inset it a little bit, because you can do it like that or like that. And we don't need the extra gap, so I'm gonna put it upside down like that, and we should be able to get them real flush mounted with our roof rack.
Jimmy's about to climb up on the roof, and this stresses me out every time, but he has a really cool way of getting up there.
We have this awesome roof rack, but we do not have a dedicated ladder, so this is how we do it. Ta-da.
He makes it look so easy, but I've tried a bunch of times and I just can't do that.
So this is what I'm working with up here. When we installed the roof rack, we didn't know exactly how far we wanted to space out the panels. So we kind of just installed these beams where we thought they'd line up later. We're off by a couple inches, so I'm gonna have to unscrew this beam and move it back so that we can actually rest the back half of this panel on it.
Mildly bad news. We're not going to be able to fit the 3 panels all lined up side by side like we had hoped. We just don't quite have enough room. But we do have plenty of room to still install all 3 of the panels. We'll just have to change up the configuration a little bit, and it will still look cool. Jimmy is assuring me of that. So really no harm done. It's just a little bit different than how we were picturing installing the panels. But as long as we can get all 3 of them up there, I'm happy. I'm gonna start preparing the next panel for Jimmy to install by putting on the mounting brackets before I hand it to him, just so that there's less stuff for him to do, because I'm really just kind of waiting around down here anyway. Now that 2 of the solar panels are installed in the roof, Jimmy is getting a little bit boxed in and limited on what he's able to reach while he's up there. So we brought in something to help. It's a big A-frame ladder. This is the first time it's been used, but Jimmy's dad is letting us borrow his, and I think it's gonna help us out a ton. Because we might have mentioned it before, but we bought the roof rack, but we opted not to get the ladder on it, just because it was a bit expensive. So this is really gonna be a lifesaver today. is ready to go. We got all 3 panels in.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're on the roof, yeah.
They're on the roof, that's all we need.
Not quite.
Let's drive away, see what happens. So Jimmy's tightening up the last couple of bolts for the solar panels. We managed to get all 3 of them mounted, but I don't think we'll be able to totally finish the install today. What we still need to do is run the cables from the solar panels through the roof and then into our van garage where we have our solar charge controller. So we can just connect the cables directly to that. It's getting a bit too dark for us to finish that up tonight, so we're just gonna pick you guys up tomorrow.
So I think we finally found a break from the rain. It's almost, well, I don't have a watch on, but it's almost 5 p.m. and every time we come out here, it's nice and clear and then it starts raining 10 minutes later. So I think we've actually waited out the rain this time and we're here to finish up the solar panel install. So I'm gonna hop back up on the roof and just give you a quick recap of what we did yesterday. So basically, not much has changed from our plans, but instead of having 3 of the panels like horizontally, one after each other, we had to turn 2 of the back panels to be parallel with the van itself. So we kind of have like this U shape going on, but we got really lucky and it works really well this way. And we were able to fit all 525 watts of solar on our roof. So now where we're left off today is I've got all the cables connected to each other and I've got a pile of cables next to me that we now need to drill a hole through our van roof and feed it down into the electrical wall that I've got going on. And we'll plug it into our solar charge controller and we should be able to get power. All right, so I think we have a placement picked out. This right on the edge lines up with a channel inside the van. So we'll be able to run the cables in and run them sideways and down the vertical channel straight into the electrical side. So this is our cable entry gland. It's just kind of a waterproof mechanism that will kind of hide the hole that I'm about to drill. And it looks pretty, so that's why we have this. These cables are small enough, I think I can just drill 1 hole. And I'm gonna draw a little Sharpie point where I'm gonna do it.
Sounds good.
So I'll do it like right in the middle, kind of there-ish, like there, I think should be good.
Drawing on our van.
Yeah, well I'm about to do a lot worse. This is the 3rd and final hole we're gonna be putting in our van. Well, until we do the heater.
Yeah.
All right, you ready?
Ready. Wow.
All right. Thank you.
One other thing we're gonna install while Jimmy's already drilling a hole in the roof is our WeBoost antenna. So this is a super easy install, but it makes a really big difference when we're out in public land where we might not always have the best cell signal. So this part that Jimmy's about to install is the outdoor antenna. We also have an indoor antenna and a receiver. So those 3 parts just make up the whole WeBoost system and give us better signal. And one pleasant surprise that we were not expecting with this is that this outdoor antenna that needs to go on our roof is magnetic. That's gonna make it so easy. We literally just have to run the cable through the roof and we're done.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All the cables are connected and run through the roof. The last step is to connect the 2 solar panel cables to our solar charge controller. And then we'll just have a fully working solar setup. I can't wait. It's just in time, unfortunately, for the sun to go down completely, so we might have to wait until tomorrow to see how well it actually works during the day, but I'm still excited.
Oh, gosh. I think we're totally done with our electrical system now.
Yeah, I think so.
Like, barring that there's no issues, which we will find out tomorrow.
It's supposed to be really sunny tomorrow, which should be the perfect way to test out our new panels. Good morning. The sun is out, and I think this will be the perfect day to test out our new solar and electrical setup. So we're gonna head to a park where hopefully we can get a spot with no trees, no shade, and just test out our solar panels and see how they run.
We're actually meeting Shelly's Nest at this park. And for those of you who don't know by now, Shelly's Nest is my parents. So you'll get to see them and meet them if you haven't already.
And Jimmy's newly married sister is also here. We've really got to move on soon, but we're gonna hang out with family just a little bit before we leave because I don't know when we'll all be together again.
So the plan is we're gonna leave the van here under the sun in the parking lot while we go in and kind of just have some fun, explore, maybe get some lunch. And then we'll come back in a couple hours and see how much the solar has charged up our batteries. So the numbers to begin with is our batteries are currently sitting at 41% and it is 10:45. So we'll come back in a couple hours and see what we can expect from these solar panels. Since it's kind of like mid-October, I'm really doubtful that we're gonna be able to get the full 525 watts. You know, you kind of only really get that when the sun's right overhead and we're getting close to winter. So I'm just kind of excited to see what the peak watts are gonna be and how much we'll actually charge up over one day.
We're gonna leave our refrigerator running. We might leave the vent fans going as well just to keep the air from getting stale while we're gone. But other than that, we really shouldn't be pulling very much power at all.
So is this weird that the first place we go to after we build a van is just a small town park? It's no Sedona, no Zion.
I think it's fun. We're just getting our feet wet. The baby elephant's taller than me. Hey guys.
Hi.
It's about 2:15. We started our test at 10:45 and I would love to have it be an even 4 hours. We're gonna hold off on checking our battery percentage until 2:45. So we've got a bit of time to kill, but I think this would be the perfect time for Jimmy to kind of walk you guys through how he set up the electrical in our garage.
It's a little messy. I'm gonna try to do my best to keep this interesting for people not building out their own vans, but I do wanna get the information across. So first we'll start with the batteries. We've got 3 200 amp hour LifePo batteries. I've got them in a staircase pattern just to kind of save room. And we've got 2 ways that we charge these batteries. One is while we drive, and we do this with the DC-DC battery charger. So this is just hooked up to our alternator, and we get about 40 amps coming in when we drive. The second way, which you saw earlier in the video, is our new solar panels. So we've got them mounted on the roof, and I've got cables running through the side, and they eventually hook up to what is behind me, which is our solar charge controller. This thing can output up to 60 amps, but I think with our setup on the roof, I think at maximum we'll probably get about 40 to 45, best case scenario. And it runs all the time, so it's nice. So those are the 2 ways. There is a third way that we didn't opt for, and that was a shore power plug, and that's usually used at campsites or when you're visiting family or friends, so you can plug up to their house. We had that in the bus, and we might have used it 3 or 4 times in a year, so we kind of decided not to add that to the van. I mean, it's only been a day, but so far those 2 methods have been just fine for us.
Also, on our trip down here, we've lasted a full week on the DC charger alone. So I think we'll definitely be okay, especially with the recent addition of solar panels.
So now that we've got our 2 different chargers that actually charge up our batteries, we use the power in 2 different ways. The first way is we've got our big 3,000 watt inverter here from Renogy. And this powers all of our house outlets inside, as well as our water heater and our electric stovetop. We like to play it on the safe side, and our water heater does pull, I think, almost 1,900 watts. So we like to be on the safe side, and that's why we chose the 3,000 watt. The second way we use our power is through our DC lines. So it's much smaller, but over here I've got my DC fuse block, and that connects to all of our lights, our refrigerator, all of our USB plugs, as well as our fans, our rooftop fans and our side fans.
Our water pump.
Our water pump, pretty much everything that isn't our heater and stove. And then other than that, just some things to note is that I've got a lot of these resettable fuses going on a lot of my power lines. And if you remember anything from this, make sure you add a fuse to every positive line you have in your system. So that's what we've done here. And I've just also added resettable fuses, and so basically they act as switches. So if I wanted to turn off just my refrigerator, since that's kind of a larger draw, I've got a switch for that. And then I've got a switch for my solar, so if I wanted to turn off my solar charge for some reason, I've got a switch for that. As well as one for the DC charger, so if we didn't want to charge while we drove for some reason, I would almost never turn any of these off, but it's good to have the option. And then finally, I've got another one that runs to the DC fuse box. So if I wanted to turn off all the lights, the refrigerator, all the plugs all at once, I've got one master switch for that. So it really helps in maintenance, but honestly, we don't use it that often.
Not yet anyway.
Not yet anyway. And just some honorable mentions that I kind of skipped over was one, I've got a circuit breaker here. I've got one for my outlets and one for my stove and water heater. The only thing I haven't mentioned yet was we do have one giant master switch in the back that's rated for like 1,000 amps or something. And that one's placed basically right after the batteries. So if we have to do any hard maintenance on it and actually turn off the batteries completely, I've got one giant master switch for that. Some things I did differently in the van versus the bus is just better cable management. Everything else is pretty much the same. I just wanted to make sure that all our cables were organized as best we could. So I've got everything mostly mounted in some straight lines that run around the bed in like a nice safe area. Since half of our appliances are on the left side of the van and half are on the right side, you kind of do gotta run a lot of cables for them all. So everything not going through the wall is going underneath the bed, and I've got them all clustered together so that they're at least a little bit organized. So I think it's officially close enough to 245 that we're gonna see how our solar panels have done.
So what percentage did we start at?
Oh, you're testing me now.
Ugh.
I think it was like 40% or 41%.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Because our batteries are currently sitting at 41%. All right, so we'll see what we're at now. And this was over 4 hours. You ready?
I'm ready.
New solar panels, go.
What? Okay.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Okay, cool. So it's 54% over 4 hours. Well, okay, we didn't get 54%. We're at 54% battery capacity now.
Yeah, so 14% of 600 amps. How many amp hours is that? 84?
84.
Amp hours, okay. That we charged over 4 hours?
Over 4 hours, yep.
So that's an average of like 21.
We're boring them now.
It's 21 amps per hour.
21 amps per hour. Yeah, that sounds right.
That's good.
Yeah, because right now we're getting 23 amps.
Okay.
Right now.
With 330 watts of solar.
Yeah. If we can get 15 to 20% a day, that should be plenty. I think we use about 4% for the water heater and 4% for the stove per meal.
I think we'll be very set on power with this get up, especially on a good sunny day.
Yeah, definitely.
I love you. Good job on the setup, Jimmy. It looks so neat.
Good job for helping.
I held the camera.
Yeah. So I think this was the last big project we needed before we could really set out and start exploring. So I think we're gonna start that next week.
Pancake is road trip ready.
Road trip ready.
All right, we'll pick you back up next week and we'll be on the road, traveling.
Traveling. Thanks so much for watching.
Bye.